Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly. As we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Rewind-A-Dynamite with Jon, Pollock and Wai Ting on a Wednesday night following Dynamite. All 2 hours and 8 minutes of it. How are you, Wai?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, not so bad. How are you, Jon?
I'm doing well.
Okay. Happy to hear it.
You always sound so skeptical.
I believe you this time. I'm not skeptical. I have no great response to the question, really.
Okay. Like you pause, you think about it, and then you're like, okay, if you say so.
I guess I'm more so wondering, because it's taken you a second to think about your answer. And I guess I wonder why that is.
I'm trying to give you a sincere response. I'm not giving you just some pat response.
Well, as am I. Thus, I guess maybe what sounded to you like skepticism. But I was more so wondering why you would ask me the question when you didn't have much of an answer for it yourself.
Okay, well, I'm doing good.
So am I.
Yeah, that's great to hear. What are we going to talk about tonight, Wai?
Well, some news, I'm sure. An edition of AEW Dynamite, which I think will give us a lot to talk about. And maybe some of your feedback as well.
All of that will be covered. Wai is correct. We have over the next couple of days, how many hours of AEW? We have Rampage on Friday, 3 hours on Saturday night.
6
if you include tonight with Dynamite. So,
how about the length of a pay-per-view?
A little longer. We also had a pay-per-view in there too. This is quite a lengthy week.
In a 7-day stretch, we've had, 12, 11 hours?
It all adds up at the end. Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, tonight, so before I am corrected by anyone, I was a bit surprised tonight that there was nothing like off the top or anything related to Joe Koff on the show tonight. I thought for sure that was going to get at minimum like the graphic off the top, but I thought they might even do something within the body of the show, just given his just how tied to Ring of Honor that he was and to many of the performers that are on this roster. I know that they acknowledge the passing online, but AEW, they usually really go out of their way on their programming when, a notable figure passes away.
Yeah, right. I can't give you a solid reason why that would be. I could imagine maybe this week's Ring of Honor on Honor Club will have something, at least like some mention. I don't know what the nature of those tape shows might be, but I would at least expect something. Maybe it's something that they considered more specific to the brand.
Well, I wanted to talk a bit more about Joe Koff because the news had just come out right as we were wrapping up Raw on Tuesday when we did the show. But Joe Koff is, you've probably heard a lot of people speaking about him over these last couple of days. And it is just one of those kind of right place, right time that Joe Koff was where he was in his career at Sinclair that led to the opportunity that Kerry Silkin was looking to get rid of Ring of Honor, to sell Ring of Honor, and having somebody at Sinclair that was going to be able to not only, take this up the food chain at Sinclair and orchestrate a purchase, but also to be the point man that would be overseeing this. Because I think if Gary Juster does not have that connection, like an existing connection that he had known Joe Koff since the late 80s, you don't have that contact at Sinclair. I don't know if Sinclair is looking to get into the wrestling business unless there is that executive that is willing to push forward and be the person. And even if there was, if they had just taken some executive at Sinclair to oversee the wrestling operation, if you don't have someone that understands wrestling, it could have been much different. And I think Ring of Honor, Kerry Silkin has been very vocal about the fact this thing never made money for him. It was this investment that it was more so of a passion project than it was some sound investment. But it gave a lot of people different opportunities. And unfortunately, it was the larger companies that ended up making the money off so many of these performers. But as we always discuss with Ring of Honor, Wade, like, you take that out of circulation in any of those years, had Kerry Silkin just wanted to withdraw or the sale doesn't happen, it's so many what ifs of performers that would not have jobs elsewhere, that may have just left the industry completely. It would have been such a changing, like one of those sliding doors scenarios of where the industry would have gone to where it was going towards a style that ROH was popularizing and giving so many of these talents exposure on a national level.
Certainly, yeah. I think there's a direct line of I would say transition between Ring of Honor and what became AEW, and it makes you wonder, like, without ROH, how that transition would have been made, if All In would have occurred in any sort of the same way that it ended up happening. So yeah, these are all really interesting questions to ask, and I mean, Joe Koff played a big part in all of that.
Yeah, like, All In does not happen if Joe Koff doesn't give it the approval to go forth. As well, we look at it as like the influence and where AEW went. Let's not forget that when NXT became its own brand, like, it was very much in response to Ring of Honor. That was like the chief competitor for NXT when you saw them going to a lot of the same buildings and then signing a lot of the talent, and that became sort of the direct impact that I think ROH saw was when suddenly WWE had this sub brand that was very much competing directly for that same audience. And look no further than WrestleMania weekend, where they saw how big Ring of Honor could draw on these weekends, and NXT tried to cut in on that, coming in with their takeovers on those weekends as well.
Yeah. Certainly provided an outlet in North America for audiences who prefer that sort of style to get it on a national level. And, like, towards the end of, I guess, Ring of Honor's run, it was like sort of like met with like peaks and valleys, peaks in the form of these incredible successes like Madison Square Garden and like all the big shows that, the Elite were a part of that were doing huge numbers. But at the same time, maybe a certain apathy towards the rest of the roster and like the rest of the content that they were producing. So I don't know. Maybe at the point that he was in control, somewhat like mixed results, but still, I think fulfilled a very necessary spot in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Madison Square Garden show, it's like this very kind of centralized point in the company's history. Like, yes, it represented this gigantic promotional achievement for them, working with New Japan, doing that attendance at Madison Square Garden. It was also a show that was very divided among the audience of what direction ROH was going after that show. It is, by the time they get to Madison Square Garden, that's when AEW has formed. It's a lot of the talent that has already signed up with AEW, and it was the question mark of what is ROH going to be post the Elite, and in a world that AEW is catering to a lot of that audience. And then you fast forward a year and the pandemic hits, and ROH never recovered from the pandemic. I think, like we talked about it today on the show with Jordan Goodman, like, of all the companies out there, I mean, ROH, they did everything you could ask for of a company when it came to paying talent for all those months and being extra cautious when it came to finally going and taping television in empty arenas. But it was a major hit on the company, and they never got back after the pandemic. And then by the end of 2021, like, the writing is on the wall, and they were prepared to go on that hiatus. and then you get the announcement from Tony Khan in early 2022, and that's the end of Joe Koff in professional wrestling. But he oversaw a very, very key period in wrestling history when you look at the Garden Show, at All In, and trying as well to get like a syndicated product across in an era where people are such creatures of habit on to watching wrestling in one specific spot. And it was kind of like a relic from the past of trying to get across in syndication. Like you can see today when we talk about Women of Wrestling, for instance, like you see these like audiences for it, but it's very hard to have that sort of public consciousness when you're relying on syndication, and it's very tough to get that kind of following that ROH was up against.
Yeah, a lot of insight from Jordan on today's edition of Pollock and Thurston, where he got to speak at length about his working relationship with Joe Koff and how he met Joe Koff, and from all accounts seemed like he was like a really great boss to work for. So I encourage everybody to check that show out.
Some numbers from the past two nights. Raw on Monday night, this was the taped show from the week prior, 1,539,000 viewers. So their audience was hardly changed from last week. The demo dropped 8% to a 0.44 going against Monday Night Football, which had a combined audience of 17.2 million people across the three networks carrying it. It was Raw's second lowest 18 to 49 number of the year. And WrestleNomics reporting that the peak viewership quarter was for the Cody Gunther face-to-face, the first time face-to-face meeting between Cody and Gunther since the week before. And the peak in 18 to 49 occurring in the main event for Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton. So those were the Raw numbers. And in Canada, they were at their lowest audience since June because they were not only up against Monday Night Football and the Major League Baseball playoffs, which was also airing Monday night. There was also a very big NHL game with Montreal and Pittsburgh. So this was their lowest audience since June, 185,800 viewers on Sportsnet 360. So there was a lot of sports competition. Do you think like we always talk about live versus taped? Do you feel that is more prevalent as we move forward? Way that there's enough of that it can play a difference?
I really don't personally. I think it might be more about what's advertised, what feels big enough on a show. Maybe this was just not a show where people were willing to part with their sports in order to make a priority.
Mm-hmm. And then NXT on Tuesday. This was the more interesting number because this was the first week on CW where they did not have the bonus of multiple main roster performers. This was the first normal show on CW, and they were down to 639,000 viewers and a 0.18. So down 27% in viewership, down 24% in the demo. And they were going against the Yankees-Guardians game that did 5,398,000 viewers. And this, we will see if this is kind of what NXT settles into, because this is right at the level they were at on the USA Network for all the promotion of the first 2 weeks. And we will see after the first month, but this feels like a more kind of normalized audience for NXT.
I would expect it, John. And I don't know if that's necessarily something that they would be upset about. I think it's almost to be expected. I don't think this is as a developmental show should be relying on a Randy Orton or CM Punk every episode. And when you're building a show strictly around your next generation, I feel like it's still a pretty respectable number, despite the fact that it's on technically, I guess, a network, but with a much smaller scale one. So I don't know if they'd be that upset with it.
I mean, a 0.18 for CW. I mean, that is among their biggest. You throw out NXT, like these are the biggest demo numbers like that CW has done all year. So if they settle in at a 0.18, that is like it's extraordinary for where CW is typically what they're doing in prime time. And realistically, when we look at the differences of the CW deal with NXT versus what Warner Brothers just got for AEW, like NXT is a steal when you're making the comparisons of the value of what they're bringing for what is reportedly around 25 million a year that we're talking about here.
Certainly, yeah.
And the last thing, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts, Wade. This weekend, there's several things going on, but among them is the debut of Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, which is Scott D'Amour's latest venture. They are doing back-to-back shows in Windsor, Ontario at St. Clair College. The first night, we won't go through all of this, but some of the matches include Konosuke Takeshita against Speedball Mike Bailey, a tables match between Bully Ray and Raj Desi. Josh Alexander is on the show. Alex Zane, Trevor Lee, Kushida, Kevin Knight. And then the second night has Takeshita against Josh Alexander for the AEW International Championship. It is being defended. And Athena defending the ROH Women's title against Giselle Shaw, along with a 6-man scramble. What do you think the goals are of a Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling? Like, where is the market for another startup company that is, in theory, putting together like these super shows for an audience that gets a lot of big matches on a weekly basis? Like, do you see a place for them to carve themselves out, whether it's select weekends throughout the year or something more permanent? Like, what do you think is like the best case scenario to come out of this weekend?
I think if you could lead a promotion with a talent as exceptional as Konosuke Takeshita, if they could get regular appearances from a guy like that, and they can put on, I would consider dream scale matches like a Takeshita versus Bailey or Takeshita versus Josh Alexander, then yeah, I think people would make time for something like that. You know, it's all dependent on the talent that you have access to, and it seems like D'Amour has access to some pretty high caliber talent. You know, as far as like the local area, like in Ontario, you're not necessarily getting these sort of matches every single weekend. You know, we have like a bit of an indie scene, but I wouldn't say at this level. So I know that, you know, this would entice several people maybe from the Toronto, I'm sure Detroit area to make the trip. So that I think already says a lot. It seems like they're putting like a healthy amount of money, you know, into this. At least, you know, when you're looking at the roster, the fact that Mauro Ranallo is a part of this, which I'm actually probably one of the most curious things about the show is hearing Mauro call wrestling again. So whether or not, like, you know, subsequent shows will continue at this level, I guess remains to be seen. But as a first impression, they're definitely trying to make a big one.
Yeah, you would think from the onset here that there is a healthy amount of financing going into these shows for the reasons you just stated. I mean, Windsor is not the most friendly when it comes to flights, and it seems like there's probably quite a few flights on these shows. And yeah, I guess we will see. I mean, they're airing on Triller. I don't know if they have aspirations much beyond doing like select weekends. I mean, Scott D'Amour has talked about the goal of running at Maple Leaf Gardens next year. Like he's certainly trying to lean on nostalgia for the concept here, but using like all of your modern stars, and it would appear trying to have as many relationships as possible with different companies. Obviously, you can see the imprint here with AEW and the fact that you've got a Konosuke Takeshita and an Athena, and the fact that this is not like PWG where it's just live events. Like you can buy these shows, you can watch them, and yeah, these
$20 for each night or $30 US for the both of them on Triller. So
what do you think about that pricing, and like what's your level of interest for this going into a weekend? I think it's going to be a word of mouth coming out of it.
Probably a bit of both, John. You know, like I mean, I don't think a match like Takeshita versus Bailey or Takeshita versus Josh Alexander could be anything but buzzed about. You know, coming off of the weekend, they're almost both guaranteed to be excellent, and you should probably check this out. So for $15 for that, plus like, you know, some of the talent that they have listed on the show, I think it's a fair price. You know, especially like $15 is a bundle. So $15 a night or $20 a night, it seems fair to me for a pay-per-view.
Yeah, and as Wai mentioned, Mauro Ranallo is doing commentary with Don Callis, and I don't know how much like commentary is going to like put people over the edge of like buying shows, but I mean, you really are like the novelty of Mauro calling wrestling for 2 nights is certainly there for people, but we can see enough shows that where commentary can ruin shows. This is the opposite of that, where if you're going to have a team like you would think.
We've never had that team together.
No, Morrow and Don Callis, to my knowledge, they've never called wrestling together.
To me, I mean, I'm kind of biased, but like I do think Morrow is like the type of an answer for better or worse, like depending on your taste, who is sort of like a feature guy, in that he's got a very distinct personality that certain people either love, or if you're like me, you really love, or certain people might not love so much. But to me, he is almost like as big of a draw as any of the matches on the show, because I think there's something very special about him calling professional wrestling that you don't necessarily get when you're listening to him call other sports. So I'm curious for that reason.
And just a detail on Scott D'Amore that Fightful Select reported today was that Scott D'Amore, after he was let go by TNA, he is still being paid for a full year, but does have a non-compete that would have extended past this point. And Sean Ross Sapp spoke to Scott D'Amore, who was asked if there were any restrictions initially on his severance. D'Amore confirmed that originally he did have a non-compete, and the two sides were able to work that out, giving him the ability to run Maple Leaf Wrestling. So that's an interesting fact, just that technically, like, he is under a non-compete, and Anthem gave him the go-ahead to do what is like in direct competition to, like, you're talking about Bound for Glory is the next weekend, and you're presenting shows that do have like some TNA talent on this here. I mean, that's, you know, we talk about non-competes all the time. I mean, it's generous of them that they're allowing this to go on if they have the language in the contract that they could have stopped Scott D'Amore from doing any wrestling shows till next year.
It could be that Anthem just like doesn't consider this to be that much competition, or maybe they didn't know to what extent they, you know, D'Amore would be running these shows. It's hard for us to say, but we also, I guess, can see that this might feel like a regime that is pretty generous when it comes to, like, you know, letting people be creative with their own particular deals, like we're seeing with several of these guys who are getting these sort of mixed deals with like the WWE as well, like a Joe Hendry or whatever. So clearly they're willing to negotiate, or maybe D'Amore had some pretty good leverage somehow.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear coming out of this weekend if there is a discussion about these shows, if they land on people's radar. I mean, you're going up against this weekend. New Japan has the show at Crystal Palace on Sunday late afternoon. That will cross over with the second night. And then, well, AEW has their 3-hour block on Saturday night. But I'm curious. Being the first shows, you would think that, you know, there's going to be some curiosity buys for the show, and the lineups look very good, and I could see some people wanting to give this a shot, and just seeing like what a Scott D'Amore led company looks like coming off of his last TNA run. All right, all of your news can be found over at postwrestling.com. We are coming at you multiple times this week. On Thursday, we are back with Rewind-A-WAY, covering Saturday night's main event from October of 1987, as we travel back to the era. This was back when the Outrunners were trying to break into the territory in New York. But we are going to see Hulk Hogan against Sika, Randy Savage challenging the Honky Tonk Man, and the Mega Powers coming to common ground.
I'm quite looking forward to talking about this one. The show is only 1 hour long to watch, so if you want to find it on the network or Peacock, it's Saturday night's main event from October 3rd, 1987. I wasn't watching wrestling at around this time. I was 3 years old, same as you, John. So a lot of this stuff I've only heard about, and it feels new to me. But despite the fact that it's so old, I think there's a lot to still be able to like gain and appreciate, especially when it comes to the crowd and the atmosphere for these shows, which continue to still feel very special even in 2024.
Yes, from Hershey, Pennsylvania, which means we might have had a George Zahorian stationed backstage on behalf of the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission.
Wow, interesting.
Anyway, the more you know. All right, that's coming up on Thursday, and then we'll have our regular run of shows. Rewind to SmackDown Friday night. Collision Course on Saturday, covering both Collision and Battle of the Belts with Kate and John Cena. And also, a long and winding Royal Road dropping on Saturday with W.H. Park and his guest, the returning Dylan Fox. and then all roads lead to Sunday night, the N.W.A. podcast. Forget about Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling Forged in Excellence. They're going head to head with the N.W.A. podcast.
Tough competition.
It's very tough competition. So that's coming up all this weekend. So check it out, postwrestling.com and postwrestlingcafe.com to catch the latest Rewind-A-Way dropping on Thursday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dynamite tonight at the SAP Center in San Jose, California. Last number from WrestleTix, 3,266. I will get my requisite comment right out of the way. This was a giant building, and boy, did it feel like it on this show.
When we're talking about, though, the standard for AEW as of late, how does this compare?
To 3,000, I mean, if you were to ask me a while ago, like your first time going to a new market like San Jose, I think you have to call this a disappointing number for, I would say, any first time in a city. I mean, it is the reality of things. This is slightly above some of their recent TVs, but, not anywhere near where they were in Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago for the anniversary show, much less Grand Slam. But you're typically in like the 3,000 range before that, as I'm looking here. So no, I wouldn't call this a great figure for the first time in San Jose. And quite honestly, like we've been to shows at the San Jose Civic Center, which is much more compact. That NXT ran that really well-remembered live event, that WrestleMania weekend in 2015.
Before takeovers were a thing.
Yeah, before takeovers were a thing. And to me, like, you got 3,000 people. Like, to me, atmosphere is such a big thing, and it hits me every week watching these shows that I just think that would have made such a difference. But they're obviously aiming big for these types of arenas, but there's definitely a trade-off.
Could it be more than just aiming big? Like, by this point, I have to imagine Tony is well aware of these criticisms, and he has to be like fully realistic about what expectations are. I don't think for a second he was thinking he would reach even 10,000 for something like this. I can't imagine. Could there be other reasons, like, maybe TV infrastructure, or like could he have a certain deal with these sort of buildings that continues to, I don't know, encourage him to book these big NHL and NBA arenas?
I mean, if it was like set construction, I would be desperately having a set and a B set. That would be my answer. I mean,
I'd love for Tony to be asked, and to hear a response about something about that.
If he would engage in it, it would be just interesting to know what the thought process is.
That's a very interesting question, and if you tune in this Saturday, you might see the results of it. We have some great partners working on all these buildings.
You know how this works. We did get tonight. They did spend a couple seconds with a graphic promoting all the upcoming shows, which sounds like the most like the lowest bar possible. Yeah. But it's something that I don't recall them ever doing to that degree, where the whole screen was the upcoming shows and promoting dates.
They could really use a Doc Hendricks, like Todd Pettengill type of control center. Just interstitial, just to kind of throw in as you go to commercial breaks, saying like, hey, we're about to go to your town. Like, give us the whole classic thing where, like, the baby faces can cut promos, or heels can cut promos, teeing up a big match that's supposed to take place. I guess for TV, it's a bit tougher to do, but you can guarantee some of the names that are going to be there, like a Mercedes Moné or whoever, especially if it's like, a certain market where they might be a hometown guy, right?
Yeah, and I mean, your mileage is going to vary. Like, you're going to have your different talents that you're excited to see. But like tonight was a perfect example. Like, if you watch the pay-per-view and you decided to go to San Jose, okay, yes, you can't expect a Bryan Danielson, but like unless he came out in another segment that was for Rampage or for the live crowd, like, you didn't get to see Swerve on this show. There's no Darby.
Mox.
There's Moxley.
Oh, Mox made his appearance at the very end, yes.
Yeah, right. Moxley was there.
During the attack, not the end. Yeah.
So it's just, like, again, it's MJF, you didn't get, like, a live appearance from him. It's just, it's a matter of just, you don't know who you're getting at these shows. And I would say, like, the core stars are, and that's going to be up to, like, if I were to ask you, the top 3 stars, I think people are going to have all these different names, because I think they're...
Do you think AEW themselves, like, does Tony Khan himself know who's going to be at these shows? like the week before.
If he did, I think we would have known more matches before the last 24 hours when these all roll out. Like
I worry that that's the bigger issue. The fact that like he books these potentially like really late and doesn't know exactly who's going to be there enough to, give them time to promote.
So we get what's kind of becoming the staple now, where we get the cold open with the BCC, and this is them fleeing the Tacoma Dome on Saturday, and now we have the BCC pickup truck.
Yeah, we got the scapegoat van, we got Sue's van, of course. Now we've got the BCC pickup truck. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I love it. It's like there's not like clearly it's a big enough truck that they could actually sit in the back. Okay, like this has got to be one of those two row pickup trucks, but instead they choose to just gather in like the trailer. It's awesome. It's great. When are they going to sell this toy?
Fine when you're in San Jose, but I mean, there's some cold parts of the country that I wouldn't want to be just hanging out in the backseat of a pickup truck for a 6-hour jaunt. So.
Yeah.
Moxley is just cutting these amazing promos and just explains how wrestling gave me everything. I want to provide that for the roster. I hate what AEW has become. Egos are out of control. There's celebrations when there's no need for them. Dancing, partying. I was just waiting for this guy to just start spouting off the average annual value of this new deal. He says that we're going to burn down the forest to build a new one. He sees a better future. He's going to make a new one and tells them to come with us or else. Run while you can. Get out of the way. And you work for me now. And we end with a shot of a semi-troubled looking Wheeler Yuta. That seems that he has now accepted his fate, that he has joined this gang. And this is the life that the man has chosen.
Yeah, I do find Yuta's whole, I guess, role in all of this quite interesting. I mean, last we saw before Saturday, was it Saturday? Yeah. Saturday was he was fully on board with the Danielson train, and we got the Sun turn, and then we got this, which was in the aftermath of the Sun turn, as he seems like he's been very reluctant to join the BCC, but knows that this is the only thing, and he continues to tell the story by tweeting "Sorry, Bryan," with a photo of him hugging Bryan, and also a photo of him choking him out with the plastic bag in the very same tweet. So it implies that he's very reluctant to go with it, but knows this is the right path, and almost like what he did to Bryan was a mercy kill, sort of like taking out Old Yeller. I wait to hear that promo from Wheeler Yuta, like explaining a bit more at length about what exactly he might be going through. In content,
when they do the Fallout episode from WrestleDream, I do look forward to hearing that.
Listen, John, we've got 6 hours of content. Okay, he might be appearing in hour 5. Okay, or maybe on Rampage. You don't know. Okay, in a 15-second
dude,
video.
it's gonna be a digital exclusive online on their recently launched Snap.
I at least hope that like the focus on Yuta has not diminished because he's just now, the BCC's lackey again. I hope they continue to make him a priority as a part of this like next generation of guys that I think should be the one benefiting from this entire BCC thing. In content, we got a bit more fleshing out of Mox's like motivations here. He hates what AEW has become, as he has stated in the past, but now he's specifically pointing out wrestlers with big fat paychecks, people partying without a reason to, celebrating without a reason to. So perhaps he's, referring to some sort of lack of hunger that's missing in the locker room that he hopes to inspire. Which
maybe he's going to start giving out the WrestleTix numbers at the beginning of every show. Save me that job.
I think Brandon Thurston should be heading this new BCC. Maybe he's who Jon Moxley is working for. Really, look, the numbers don't lie. Yeah. But really well shot video, a great variation on like the highlight video recap that at this point feels kind of generic. Here you got a Moxley promo plus highlights shot from a different angle from the from the Saturday stunt.
So Excalibur welcomes us to a new era in AEW, and he's joined by Tony Schiavone and Nigel McGuinness tonight, and we have advertising for DC Comics surrounding the barricades.
Yeah. There's a big new campaign. I don't know much about it. I'm not much of a comics reader these days, but there's a big new campaign that they're relaunching. I guess They do this like every few years. I feel like they might like start storylines new so that they could brand everything number one as like a jumping on point for a lot of people. So this is what do you call this? Synergy? Is this, what would Mark Shapiro call this?
The margins, the margins. Out comes Adam Cole. Music to my ears. Roderick, Matt, Mike, I love you guys, but I'm doing this alone. In like 7 words, he wrote off that entire group. There's no complaint from me at all. But my concern is that this is not the last we have heard of Adam Cole and the Undisputed Kingdom. But it did give me hope that we're just going to separate this marriage.
They still have to, give us some material to definitively break them up. But yeah,
the key is you got to find a new group. Remember how we just painfully went through this with Kyle O'Reilly, and then he joined the Conglomeration, and Undisputed Kingdom were like, can't get in the way of True Love.
Yeah. So now, does Roddy even stick with the Kingdom? Do they keep the Undisputed Kingdom name?
Don't care.
You just kind of left them hanging here, Adam Cole. You formed this group, and all of a sudden you're just like, see you guys.
And then, if more truer words were never spoken, no one wants to hear about the past. And I didn't know if he was referring to his injury or to all the Undisputed Kingdom stuff. I took it as the latter, in that we're not going to piece together and make sense of this MJF Adam Cole thing. But Cole was going to try his best here to explain that MJF is the worst human being he's ever met. This is a world of shades of gray. It's like, okay, I know where this one's going. Sometimes you have to fight evil with evil. MJF will claim that he was betrayed and that I broke a promise. What promise? I'm not a stupid person. I never trusted MJF, and the version you see now is the one I saw behind closed doors. When we were going and eating at
The
Chinese food and going to Dave & Buster's. This was the prick I saw between takes. He calls MJF fake, noting his 2 hair transplant surgeries that he had, which brought me back to just a gruesome scene in the Apprentice movie where they literally show you them cutting open Donald Trump's head to give him a hair restoration procedure. Just disgusting.
Is this it's factual? I mean, obviously, if you couldn't tell by looking at him, but this is factually noted that he's had this done?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a creative. I had never heard that he actually had a procedure, but it might be accurate. If it's not, then it's creative liberties in the movie. Right. But he said, but we learned here 2 surgeries that MJF has had, according to MJF. He says how he's an insecure little boy, and then he pretty much challenges everyone to just shitpost him online because he'll read it all and he will cry about it, and puts over the locker room as a group of young guys trying to get better and carry AEW into the future, but hopefully they don't follow MJF's path, which is a path toward failure and loneliness. Everyone hates MJF, and I want to fight you right now. So MJF's music plays, but he doesn't come out. Instead, he has filed a video and sent it via Dropbox, and he learned a lot throughout his career, and there is no such thing in this business as trust. There's a lot of jackals, but then I was tricked by you, Adam. I let my guard down, but I will never trust anyone again. I blame you for the man I've become, and I am going to punish you by never getting into the ring with you, and you are going to die with the void of unfulfilled vengeance. He is going to never wrestle this man, ever. Cole states, I know MJF better than anyone. You can run, but you can't hide. And when I find you, I will give you the ass beating of a lifetime. And with that, we are now back to the spring of 2023 before they teamed. We've just rewritten 18 months.
Just like that. I mean, it's gone. Kind of like what DC is doing by just rebooting these characters and giving you new number ones. That's exactly what this is.
Synergy.
Great synergy.
Love it.
Yeah, Adam Cole had a very tough job here, okay? He had to steer this ship back on course, somehow making sense of all of this sudden shifting of character as a result of these injuries. And we have some explanation that I think we could try to piece together here. And I want your take, John, on whether or not it's satisfying, okay? So Cole explains that he he went back. Okay, so he turned evil because you have to fight evil with evil. That was his justification, okay? He says he's not stupid, and he knew all along that you couldn't trust MJF. So I guess that's to explain why
this guy broke his foot, and MJF, this evil bastard, decided, you know how I'm going to really screw him? I'm going to defend these tag titles on his behalf in handicap matches while also defending my title. And then I'm going to have this guy basically torturing me and stalking me with these goddamn masks for months and then screw me out of the championship.
And what was Cole's explanation after the devil stuff, after the devil reveal? Do you remember? It doesn't matter, John. We don't have to think about the past.
The answer is no way. I can't tell you.
You're not supposed to remember, okay?
It was months of my life until that reveal, and then poof, it got over like a fart in church after.
It doesn't matter now. All you're supposed to know from this point is that Cole, basically, he's saying he turned on MJF before MJF could turn on him, okay? So Cole's saying, I'm not really an evil guy. I just have to go evil in order to protect myself against an evil person. Meanwhile, you have MJF who says, I was evil for most of my life, but in the time that I was actually friends with you, Adam Cole, I was actually a nice person. I was genuinely a nice person until you turned on me. Now you actually made me evil. All right. So so we have Cole breaking up out of paranoia, basically, while MJF claims he is now back to being evil because Cole broke up with him out of paranoia. So I guess it's like one of those breakups where like you can understand both sides. You wouldn't say either is really right, but maybe there's an element of both that you wouldn't necessarily is either wrong either. Was all this satisfying enough for you?
I'll say this: they are in the current roles now that I think the audience wants them to be in. Was this graceful? The furthest thing from it. The one saving grace is that this did not involve a video that was shot of William Regal before he was killed, explaining everything to try and go backwards. That to me was the biggest fumble. Listen, they are where they are. They should not be fighting. I think where the audience, they want to cheer Adam Cole, they want to boo MJF. So they're in these roles.
It's messy, but listen, like injuries make things pretty messy, and they've had to make a lot of patches in order to make sense of this. In the end, they're giving the audience what they want, and that's a continued feud between MJF and Adam Cole, who have great chemistry now in their proper roles that I think we're happy to see them in. I was personally satisfied enough with what they gave us here. Like we could make some sense of it.
The first of, I think, 15 interviews with Renee was with Chris Jericho. Actually, this one was stated to be right after WrestleDream on Saturday. He feels vindicated after his loss to Mark Briscoe. He brags about his movie Terrifier 3 being #1 at the box office. And
was that a joke?
No, it actually was #1 because Joker 2 fell so badly. It fell like 70% or 80%. Terrifier 3 actually was #1 at the box office.
I've never even heard of Terrifier, Terrifier
these are
franchise.
Cheap horror films that have done well, and this one I think has done the best. And it was a really this destroyed The Apprentice.
Wow, interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, that's the Jericho vortex at work.
Yeah, he says that Mark Briscoe cheated, and he wants a rematch so that he can be a 2-time ROH champion, just like Jay Briscoe was. And we go to Mark Briscoe. First of all, this is like a Dana White logic about, I lost the match, but I looked good in defeat, and therefore I should go up in the rankings. A few people will get that one. Renee interviews Mark Briscoe. He can't let Jericho speak about Jay, and therefore he's going to pay, and agrees to a rematch. But let's up the ante and makes it a ladder war for Dynamite next week. And then in walk FTR as they're going to take on Big Bill and Brian Keith tonight. So we are getting a ladder match with Chris Jericho and Mark Briscoe in the ladder match capital of the world, Salt Lake City, Utah.
What is the ladder match capital of the world? I'm curious.
It's right in the backyard for the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Well, Utah is high elevation, isn't it? Salt Lake is high elevation, so
I guess there's
a theme, I guess, somewhere in
logic there. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think Jericho needed to jump through a few more hoops to get the rematch. In my opinion, the guy did lose. And
I mean, he brought up his brother here.
Yeah, which is like, clearly all you need to do to get a match.
So if he loses this ladder match, can he just go to the well again and get another crack at the title?
I would say so. I think it offers infinite possibilities, infinite rematches. As long as you mention Jay Briscoe to Mark, he will just be like, you got your rematch. All right, I can't stop myself. I think it makes Mark look kind of stupid. Now, I understand why they're doing this, okay? They need to, Jericho's not here. They need to build to this match for next week. I think they needed a more disputed finish, at the pay-per-view, in order to maybe justify this a bit more easily. I would also suggest that they didn't need to have this match at the pay-per-view at all. I think the pay-per-view would have kind of benefited from having one less match, and they could have just spent all that time building to this match for Dynamite.
FTR against Big Bill and Bryan Keith. Cash can't get Bill off his feet with his strikes and then runs into a sidewalk slam, so they beat down on Cash throughout the picture-in-picture. Bill avoids a shatter machine, powerbombing Dax, and then clotheslines Cash out of the ring. I thought Big Bill worked really well here with FTR. There's a Diamond Dust big boot combo by the heels onto Dax, but Cash dives in for the save. Bill then runs into the post, takes a tornado DDT on the floor, and that allows the 2-on-1 for the shatter machine, pinning Bryan Keith in 8 minutes and 23 seconds. Not going to blow you away, but solid, good TV tag match, I thought. And again, I think Big Bill, he's a great tag wrestler. He's really well suited, whether it was with Ricky Starks. I saw he had good chemistry here with Bryan Keith. And I think this guy, he's continuing to be, someone that I think everyone was skeptical of coming when he made the move from TNA, but has really found his footing, and this is the best work of his career has been this last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's always, that's, Enzo and Cass, he's always kind of made his name as the big man, as a part of a, big and small team. And it seems to be a specialty. I don't disagree with you in that, I think he's done good work in AEW. But is he really advancing himself, as part of, especially now as part of this Redwood character? I almost feel like the buzz around him coming off of those UK shows has kind of come and gone, or at least never really kind of took to North American audiences.
They're building up to Arthur Ashe Stadium next year.
Queens. Next year's Grand Slam.
Year. The build starts now.
Yeah. I mean, maybe
it's the big build.
Perhaps, but I hope they haven't missed the boat on him, and playing this type of character, comedy character, too much. I wonder if the audience demand is still there to want to see him in advance.
Yeah, I'm kind of two minds of that. I see that potential. I also look at certain people that are. He's great in this role. I don't know if I'm looking for him to elevate himself to this big singles run that. There's sort of that middle of the card position that a Big Bill fills, and sometimes it's knowing the spot that a guy has and not going so far where there is that rejection, or somebody that, quite honestly, this is a very talent-rich roster, and as we're in the midst of elevating all these other singles acts, is Big Bill one of those names that would be among that list? I would. Right. He gets a lot of television time, which is more than others can say, for sure. And waiting in the back here, watching this, was Rush, Beast Mortos, and Dralistico. And the Outrunners come out pretty much just to get a pop and try and assure that the San Jose crowd has something to react to, because there were chants on this show, but boy, did it sound like it was 15 people in an empty Costco building as they were trying to get these chants across. They do pop for the Outrunners, and they just come out to do, pretty much on the eve of our Saturday night's main event review, do the big handshake with FTR.
Yeah, is this to lead to something?
I mean, they've established the four of them kind of have this mini alliance, because every single roster member has to have an alliance, as we have learned.
Well, we got to have our 8-man tags, 6-man tags.
We could have a faction championship, but easily. There's got to be 10 groups going on. Most of them are fighting with each other, but there are just so many groups in this show.
Well, you got to find some way to organize everybody, right?
Renee is with the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass. Daddy Ass takes off because he's going to get the car because they're off to the gym. Okay. The Acclaimed.
I understand why they needed to get Daddy Ass out of this scene, but like the reasoning was really stupid. It was really rude, really. Like, like he gets interviewed and says, I have to go get my car. So bye.
So the Acclaim talk about being the winningest team in AEW. MVP and Shelton Benjamin enter and ask them to call when they want to be serious. And the Acclaim don't show any interest. Or did they? That's what you're left to
Well, Max
ponder.
Caster pocketed the card, so we're supposed to notice that. I mean, this seems to promise they're teasing a Max Caster potential defection to MVP stable, and I like it. At the very least, even if they aren't breaking up, I think it promises hopefully a compelling story for the Acclaimed. Could it be time for them to split up?
It could be. Yes.
What more could they accomplish as a tag team?
Listen, I feel like the Acclaimed, like I think they like having these guys together because it's a homegrown act. It's one that, it was just two random guys that Tony saw in, and it worked to, beyond your greatest optimistic level you could have anticipated. But it's an act that is semi-plateaued, I think.
Kind of like the space where the New Day were occupying, and maybe hopefully like the New Day, the tease of some tension between the members will give them an interesting story.
Mercedes Moné and Queen Aminata were next. Aminata early on catches a crossbody and turns into a fallaway slam. Camille gets involved, pulling Moné to the floor. So Aminata goes after Camille, but then is sent into the steps and takes the double knees. And we see Camille choking behind Aubrey's back. Aminata then stops Moné with an air raid crash into a swinging neck breaker, which follows. And then Aminata gets a significant offense here. Gets nailed with a kick from the edge of the apron, allowing Moné to hit the Meteora, backstabber, and into the statement maker, tapping out Aminata in 8 minutes and 41 seconds. I thought these two worked together very well, and it was a struggle with this crowd, which I don't want to be a broken record on, but that's what a lot of these matches had to contend with on this show. But I thought these two worked really well together.
I imagine we might be hearing from somebody at some point, maybe throughout the week, who actually attended the show, who would be able to tell us, we were loud as hell in my section. I don't know what you guys are hearing. And I don't doubt that was probably the case, but maybe it's more about how things are picked up. I didn't think it sounded that bad, but like maybe not the buzz that we've heard Dynamite matches be at. I agree with you. I thought this was a very good match. I was particularly impressed with Aminata here. I thought she displayed really good confidence and personality, both in like the backstage interaction we saw on the weekend and this in-ring match against probably the most high-profile opponent she's ever faced, and on live TV, no less. Like this is really just supposed to be a showcase match for Moné, but I thought Aminata certainly lived up to, I think, the importance of the match, and she looked very impressive to me. So I hope it's enough to show them that she's ready for more. Moné also didn't use the Moné maker, so I hope this means she's retired that move.
Yeah, I think the that went along with Bryan Danielson.
Beaten down. And
the full-time retirement.
Put it in the plastic bag.
It could still pop up for semi-big occasions, but it's done its full-time career. I think it had its run. Renee speaks with Private Party and the Young Bucks enter, and Brother Zay says that, we were beaten fair and square, but we nearly won. We won another title shot, and they made the cardinal mistake of not bringing up any deceased member of their family because the Young Bucks turned them down. But Matt did state that we take back the comment about you being a mid-card act, but you were taken to the limit, and a rematch doesn't work for us, brother. That was your last shot ever at the belts. And Private Party just kind of had to stand there and take it. So Stokely enters and states how you guys could have had me in your corner. You guys have been around here since the Obama administration. And next time they lose, it's over for them. And everyone knows Quen is a single star. And Zay just looks at Quen and says, if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes.
So what does that mean? I was a little confused by the last line here. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Is that Zay acknowledging that we have to break up? What does that mean?
I thought that meant that they had to write in Obama as the candidate next month. What did that mean? You guys have been around here since the Obama administration.
Well, since 2018, they've been around here.
Well, AEW started.
Sorry, whatever. 20.
Yeah, 21? Well, I get the
2019?
Trump was elected in 2016. Obama's been out of office since then.
I guess maybe it was just more of a joke.
Okay. Well, he should have said since the Trump administration. I mean, I think that would have got a better.
That's not
reaction.
that impressive. I mean, everybody was kind of around.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes.
No. What? So what? Tell me what that means. What? So are they acknowledging that? Hey, we will break up the next time we have a tag title shot.
Yeah, because Stokely insinuated the next time you lose, it's over. You're going to implode, basically. And
Zay is agreeing with that?
Well, he doesn't have the best long-term view here. But I guess that's the idea. We're going to keep winning until we either get another title shot or we'll break up if we lose again. So hopefully they don't lose on Collision.
Okay, so Stokely somehow convince brothers or Isaiah that this was the right thing they should do. The next time they lose a tag title shot, that they should.
I would have just told this guy to F off.
Yeah,
I would not have put my career at stake over a witty line and an attempt at political humor.
All right. Okay.
And then we go to the Elite. Okada, the Bucks, and Jack Perry. They note it is Kenny Omega's birthday, and Jack Perry reminds us that doctors had to remove 20 inches of your putrid intestine, and they had it removed, and they have a birthday cake for Kenny Omega. This looked like a gross cake, by the way. Like, this just looked...
Even without the intestines on top of it.
No, because then Jack Perry dumps what I hope were prop intestines
How do you
onto
get
the cake.
Prop intestines? What do you mean?
I don't know. What was this? This was like, I don't know.
Probably I don't know, pig or cow intestines.
I would rather just assume this was like human intestines because the commitment to the craft. And this was the closest I had to wondering if Vince McMahon is secretly working for this company. This was such a Vince McMahon type of humor. Vince
would have him simulate sex with the intestines. That's what Vince McMahon humor would be.
He had his head up his ass. Remember that with Jim Ross's
screwed
surgery?
His intestines out.
Oh, for God. I'm so glad we weren't doing this show in 2002 because I would have quit. Okada says, "Happy birthday, bitch." And Jack Perry says, "Get well soon, Kenny, or die. I really don't care."
So, starting the build to the Kenny comeback against the Elite, which I think we can read as very good signs for Kenny's
That's
recovery.
it. The Tokyo Dome, Tanahashi, Omega, and Intestines come down from the rooftop on top of the Young Bucks. They are smothered in intestines.
Yes, sure.
Their new finisher, the gallbladder.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No. The easy one is they do the double tope suicidas as the tandem diverticulitises. Kazuchika Okada and the Young Bucks took on Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, and Rocky Romero. They did note the history here of Rocky Romero and Okada and their history in Chaos. There were a solid 20 people chanting for Okada at the beginning of this. Then they got into the Bucks. Eventually, they started chanting for a babyface in Orange Cassidy. O'Reilly stops a Rainmaker, applying a guillotine, but Matt breaks that with an elbow off the top. We get the forever clotheslines, and then Romero goes for the sliced bread, is caught with a tombstone by Okada, and then the Bucks are pumping up, which allows Kyle to move over and tag Cassidy. Cassidy's in, runs wild, and then Cassidy hits a spinning DDT onto Matt, sets up for the orange punch, when out of nowhere, Wheeler Yuta enters and hits him with a Busaiku knee, causing the disqualification at 9 minutes and 12 seconds.
Yeah, I guess we could talk about the match itself. Yeah, it was good. As these sort of conglomeration three-person six-man tags always are. I was expecting maybe a bit more focus on Okada and O'Reilly because that's the match that they're building to. But I guess that had to take a bit of a backseat because there's a bigger.
They had like interactions, but I mean, maybe I just missed it in commentary, but I don't even recall them bringing up the challenge from Saturday.
I don't think we have an official match announcement yet, but Cino did mention that they announced a bunch of matches for Battle of the Belts just now. So
they did not announce this for Battle. They're not doing Okada and Kyle O'Reilly on Battle of the Belts.
Yeah, I don't know what they've announced. Oh, we'll let people know at the end of this review.
We'll go through it. I have the list. That was I didn't think the match really got to the next level here. Like, it was fine for the time it had. I guess like your end here was BCC showing up, attacking the Conglomeration, and the Elite just watch from the floor. They don't get involved. They were playing Xavier Woods here. Pac now has a briefcase, which presumably is holding the championship belt. Top Flight comes out, they get destroyed. Dark Order come out, they get destroyed. Just total geeks here, but we're gonna start with the geeks and move our way up for BCC. And then the Elite just leave to the back. They abandon Team AEW. And this included Marina Shafir choking Alex Reynolds with a belt around the post. And Moxley says if you are involved with AEW, you are under attack as they drive the steps into Reynolds. And this is the cost of doing business. And they're left laying when finally Daniel Garcia, Private Party, and Christopher Daniels took their sweet time to make their way down. And they explain the absence of Darby Allin. He's been unreachable since WrestleDream. He's been unreachable.
Well, maybe they should have checked Tony Hawk's skate park.
Thank goodness that we had an explanation for this Tony Hawk skate park autograph 8x10 that they're selling to explain Darby Allin's pre-tape.
What's funny about that is apparently Tony Hawk was missing. Okay, have we been able to reach Tony Hawk?
He was unreachable. He was unreachable.
Somebody check on Tony Hawk and his status in all of this. But Darby Allin was at Tony Hawk's skate park to promote
Without
this
Tony
8x10.
Hawk. But I swear this autograph's really from Tony Hawk.
Oh goodness, yeah. Well, it's to benefit the skate park project thing. But yeah, that was somewhat hilarious. Anyway.
So the Elite are backstage and they're confronted by Daniel Garcia and Private Party, and they state it's none of their business to get involved with the BCC. I hope there is something here for the Elite because, man, do they feel like a watered-down version of the Horsemen once the N.W.A. debuted. Like, they just feel like and say nothing of, like, the Undisputed Kingdom. Like, they're kind of comedy goofballs to begin with, but the Elite just feel like a very inconsequential group now that you have the real, like, heat-generating group that the show is being written around.
I think that was the perception that was being created anyway with the BCC around, because tonally the BCC as heels especially are just such a more intimidating, serious group compared to, what the Elite offer, which is like sort of comedic, like storyline over the top heels. And I think
in story, like, that's the group that BCC should be trying to take away. However, the BCC will be baby faces in that equation to the audience.
Certainly. True. But they are seemingly putting them in direct conflict through scenes like this, right? Either that or they're trying to have the Elite, basically justify their lack of interaction with the BCC by saying it's not our problem. I don't know if there's a great way to have those two interact without maybe the Elite looking like less intimidating villains. Maybe this might be the best way to make them feel like assholes by them not doing anything and simply, wiping their hands of it, saying this is not my problem. So in that sense, I felt like this was actually pretty decent heat on the Elite for not doing anything about this takeover of your company. And I also felt like it was really good showcase of Daniel Garcia. He came out here looking like a leader. He came out here feeling like the leader of the next generation. I would also say, along with Orange Cassidy, who was given a bit of a spotlight here as the focused victim of the BCC's attack. So the closing scene that we saw coming out of WrestleDream, I feel continued to put some of the spotlight on both Garcia and Orange Cassidy in this show. Yeah.
Baby faces in 2024, they don't put their phones on silent. They're always on call. They're always reachable. Lio Rush against Shelton Benjamin. When this match began,
match.
yeah, like, you know the visual going into this, but when this match began, I mean, this man looked like a monster next to Lio Rush. Like, you don't appreciate either how big Shelton Benjamin is or how tiny Lio Rush is. Like, this just looked, visually, this looked nuts.
Everybody was wondering where Bobby Lashley was at WrestleDream. Bobby Lashley is right here. I don't know what people are talking about. Look at this man's body. What the fuck? Did he look like this in the WWE?
Maybe that'll be his new name when he comes in. He'll be Body Lashley.
Oh, man.
Yeah, look at Shelton. This dude's 49 years old.
Listen,
guy hasn't aged a day since getting super kicked by Sean.
He's just, maybe a once in a lifetime type of athlete. But clearly the time off has, given him plenty of time to work on his upper body, and he looks remarkable. So,
well, he had a better match here than his last 9 years in WWE. It was an interesting match to watch. Again, I'll put the crowd aside, but you could tell as the match progressed, like this audience was like looked very impressed by Shelton Benjamin. This guy, like, he had his working boots on for this match, and you got an opponent that got to really accentuate Benjamin's strength, which you don't look at him as like a big muscle guy, but in this equation, he got to play like your dominant, like, monster ex-amateur wrestler. He's throwing him around with belly to bellies, and Rush just flies from all of these. He's being overpowered. I think at some points, like, the heat was almost too long. Shelton beat him down for like 6 minutes uninterrupted. Rush then finally bounces off the bottom rope for a stunner after tons of selling, hits a pair of tope suicidas, a cutter, and then Lio Rush gets several covers in, and then Benjamin scales to the top for a suplex. And at this point, this crowd is all bought in to Shelton Benjamin. They were so impressed with the suplex off the top, and then he throws Lio Rush with these German suplexes. Dude, he threw this guy to Oakland. And then presses Rush in the air. This was the one hang up in the match. He pressed him up in the air. I don't know what they were going for, because it looked like Lio just came down on top of Shelton Benjamin, and then he went to the pay dirt and pinned him.
I almost wonder if that was supposed to be the finish, like whatever this pop-up thing was supposed to be. It ended up just like looking like some sort of pop-up flatliner, which still delivered a big impact, but did maybe somewhat confuse the crowd who might have been expecting like a bigger, more clear move. Yeah. Nonetheless, like, what an impressive match.
He looked good.
For
he
Shelton.
Looked very good here.
Like, I've never seen Shelton Benjamin look this dominant or mean ever in a match, and I certainly did not expect that in AEW when I think the water's already so deep with your monsters. I expected this match to be like a 50-50 showcase for both guys. Impressive athleticism leads to some sort of hard-fought victory from Shelton. Instead, it was like, man, 95-5 for Shelton. I did not expect him to play the role of like a Lesnar-Lashley style of like monster, and I was very compelled by this match. I think Lio Rush, man, Shelton Benjamin should buy a case of Lio Rush CDs, okay, for what Lio Rush did for him in this match. Lio Rush sold his ass off to make this type of match happen. Both men, I thought, looked incredible. Lio Rush is really he's an exceptional talent. He's an elite level high flyer, to me, like on the level of like an Osprey and a Ricochet. Everything he does looks perfect and looks unique. And he was used here to create a great cat and mouse chase. And Shelton looked very convincing as this cat, really tough to take down, and then very explosive when it came time for him to pounce. So I know Lashley's coming in, but man, I certainly don't hope I hope that Shelton's role isn't diminished and he doesn't just become the second guy in this Hurt Business, Hurt Syndicate anymore once Lashley is here, because I think there's so much potential here for this interesting Shelton dominant Shelton Benjamin character.
MVP left his card for Lio Rush because maybe he just wants to have a regular opponent for his guys, and tells him good try, and then they address Swerve that he should reconsider his position because this is your future, and we should finish the conversation we started at WrestleDream, and they push Shelton Benjamin as the standard of excellence.
Yeah, and they announced the match for Fright Night Dynamite in 2 weeks.
That's right. They're doing a Halloween-themed Dynamite in 2 weeks, and that is when we are going to get the Swerve-Shelton Benjamin match. Swerve responded to this and pretty much said, let's go. This is when we got the promotion of all the different upcoming shows, and that Halloween, well, the night before Halloween show will be in Cleveland as well. Shivani brings out Don Callis along with Lance Archer and Brian Cage for a press conference. Lance Archer has kind of updated his look.
He got rid of his braids.
This was not a good look for him. That's all I'm going to say.
You missed the braids?
This just did not look. It didn't
No?
look good.
What's wrong? What should he have instead? Who would you say is dressed the best in this Callis
I mean, by
family?
design, they're all supposed to be dressed like dirtbags out of 1992.
Do you like Takeshita with his parachute pants and the leather jacket? Do you like Kyle Fletcher in the denim with no shirt underneath? Brian Cage with no shirt at all? Or Lance Archer in his like S&M, like greasy hair?
There is a consistency to all of this, so maybe this is the vibe you need to go for as a what level of heel faction is this in the AEW hierarchy? Are they
I would say they're
or below
above
the elite?
They're above the elite for sure.
They're above the elite, then they should probably be the number 2 group, number 2 heel group.
No, we'll see. It's only week 1.
Okay, a lot of groups, by the way. Yeah, so Don Callis brings out... First, he said he was going to field questions, but there are no real journalists in wrestling, as he introduces Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita.
Number 1 heel group.
I guess so. Takeshita says he will defend this title all around the world and dares anyone to take it. Fletcher says everyone has been asking him, why, Kyle, why? Why did you turn on Will Ospreay? He says, everyone's talking about Will when it's the biggest night in our history. It's like, really? Who's talking about Will Ospreay tonight? Nobody. Because Will Ospreay was another performer not on this show tonight.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So add him to the list. So why did he turn on Will? Too bad for those that want to know.
What the fuck? The fuck
Which
was
usually
this?
means we haven't quite nailed out a solid reason yet either. Even though we actually do know the reason. Like the whole reason was explained on television. This isn't one of those out of nowhere turns. This was all telegraphed.
Yeah. I didn't think there was ever any mystery about why Kyle Fletcher turned. Like, Ospreay prevented him from using the screwdriver, which cost them the tag titles. I'm sure there's something deeper to it, but like I'm sure it's something like it's not like I was asking for a bigger explanation. Like, this is not like why Jon Moxley has chosen to attack Bryan Danielson. Like, I feel like I could piece things together. So this is all to say, this mystery is not deep enough for them to delay it by a week or however long they're choosing to delay it. There's no real mystery here to dangle in front of us. I don't care that much. I won't care in a week.
Callis says the family has never been stronger than today.
Hey, this also probably means like I can't imagine Hobbs is coming back at this point. Like, he'll probably come back to do some sort of breakup story, but like, they've got a whole team of giants already. Hobbs being a part of this would just feel like, like another guy. So I guess they could feud with Hobbs.
I would think that like Hobbs he's from Oakland, right? Like he should be back on that show tomorrow in Stockton. Like, that would be the place. If not tonight, then it should be tomorrow at Stockton. He should be back.
Collision?
Well, that's Northern California. I mean, if you want to bring him back in his like home market, that's the closest you've got, unless you're going to just save it for a city that doesn't have the connection to him.
Yeah. I wonder if I just want it to feel big,
Well, I don't know if we're going to get that. Mariah May is interviewed. She mocks the reporters at the press conference. And so did you watch any of the press conference? Because I saw none of it.
I did not, but I know that nobody asked her a question.
So she came out and she didn't get one question.
Apparently. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what happens at these press conferences. You put them out there, and that's the risk you run when you put characters out and people don't know what to do.
Well, she turned it into a promo.
Well, there you go. You got something out of this. So she says to bring her a challenger, bring me someone from Japan, from Mexico. Does anyone here want to work? And says AEW is where the best are afraid of the glamour. But not Anna Jay, who walks right up to her and then tries to slap Mariah May, and we get full Three Stooges here as Mariah May ducks and she slaps Christopher Daniels. Just like stupidity at its finest here. And this way, this has set up for Battle of the Belts. Are we going to get a battle for the belt? No, we are going to get a eliminator bout. No, that's not true. It is a women's title match. It's no. I'm going here by Cino. Women's world title eliminator. Mariah May versus Anna
Look
Jay.
at the graphic. It is an eliminator. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so battle of the road to the belts.
They have done this in the past where like the show is called Battle of the Belts, but I guess eliminator matches for belts also qualify. So
based on the logic of this show, Anna Jay would have been better served losing to Mariah May and then getting an automatic rematch based on the precedents on this show.
yeah, if she insulted a member of Mariah May's family. Yeah, I do like it continues to feel to me like they're making zero effort for these battles of the belts.
What are you talking about?
Like it's been every single one of them has felt completely missable,
Huge.
completely inconsequential, and this one feels no different. And I'm whatever. Like I feel like a bit of a broken record, but like I thought the backstage scene here was not very well done. You know, we had a good fired up promo from Mariah May, but I thought the Anna Jay run-in felt very contrived. The Three Stooges slap was also, I think, very like poorly done. But they have a lot of matches to build in a short amount of time, and I guess this was their way to justify this eliminator match.
We were talking about this today, and I'm not saying like Battle of the Belts has to be this giant priority. It's not. But something that would have been a cool deal that would have taken almost no extra work would have been like with Joe Koff, his entryway into wrestling was producing the original Battle of the Belts specials in 85, 86. And to just make this the Joe Koff Memorial Battle of the Belts, and you fill up that hour with people with ROH ties. Maybe you do a few interviews of people just reflect, like just for that 1 hour. And that takes no extra work. And I think for your audience, it would have been a cool nod to somebody that had a big history with Ring of Honor and to the Battle of the Belts concept, which he was always like very like proud of like his involvement in those Battle of the Belt specials when Flair faced Wahoo and the Flair Barry Windham match. Like he was like one of the producers of those.
That's certainly something that I think they could have done. That would have made the show feel a lot more special and relevant in some ways. I have a feeling, like with the lack of mention of Joe Koff on the show, that they don't think that enough people would know any of that association with Joe Koff to either Battle of the Belts or maybe even Joe Koff as a figure itself. That is just maybe the way I'm guessing.
It would have been their thought, but it's like you can't tell me that like any ideas for Battle of the Belts are going to take interest down because it's at zero.
Oh, I agree.
For most.
Yeah.
So there you have that set up, and then we go to Ricochet, who is issuing. So his explanation is that he was not pinned in the triple threat match. He's never been hit as hard as he was by Takeshita, and Takeshita beat Ospreay. I have never been pinned since arriving, but I will go out and prove that I'm the best. I don't need lackeys, and he's issuing an open challenge for Collision.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Ospreay will answer it on Collision, unannounced.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I thought he sounded fine. You know, I think he's doing well on the microphone. There's certainly still room for Ricochet to grow, though, in that department, and especially in AEW, where I think this company has a lot of great promos, and he's being expected to perform at a very high level, both in ring and on the mic. So he's definitely got some work to do as well.
And speaking of promos, we got several here. The BCC continued their attack in the back on Top Flight and Dark Order before taking off in the BCC pickup truck. John Silver just ran after them, and we never got an update if he just continued running all the way to Stockton. Evil Uno cuts the longest promo of his AEW tenure, issuing a challenge for a fight with the BCC. And then we pan over to Dante, who is with Action Andretti and Darius. They cut their own promo on the BCC, and they want a match with them on Collision, and they're coming for the titles. I don't think they ever announced this for Collision, but the challenge was issued. So maybe this is going to be one of those graphics that pop up tomorrow or Friday or Saturday or during the show. I don't know.
Okay, so So a lot happened here. You know, we had the continued BCC beatdown, and I think we got two very fired up promos from the Dark Order's Evil Uno, and also from Action Andretti and Dante. So what's notable is the Dark Order, last I saw, were heels. They were at least teaming up with the heels on the 0 Hour, right? So this seems like it's a babyface turn for the Dark Order now, as sort of like the AEW veterans, the people who've been here since
the Bright Order.
Sure, they've been here since the Bush administration. That is how long they've been around. So, but you know, it's a better change of direction for him. I personally didn't think that they were notable at all being heels. They're, I think, much more more effective as like these sort of like likable comedic baby faces. And I like them in this sort of like undercard, you know, level 1 role as guys like to basically take a beating from the BCC with. So now they challenge the BCC for a match either Wednesday or Saturday or in the parking lot. Meanwhile, clearly Top Flight had the better idea because they directly challenged them to a tag title match on Saturday.
They want the belts and they want a date locked in.
Yeah.
And I mean, they certainly had their material better prepared for something tangible.
They did, yeah. And then I'm sure Evil Uno afterwards is like, shit, why didn't I just challenge him for a title shot and do it earlier? Damn.
Yeah, this stuff is fine for TV to just do some stuff with the BCC. I do, like, obviously we're kind of starting from here, but this does kind of feel like, you know, Hogan, Hall, and Nash are here to take over, and we're going after disorderly conduct first.
Well, listen, man, you got to start somewhere, okay?
They're
Try
starting
to build your way up.
So here are our announced matches, okay? So Rampage, circle your calendar, Friday night, Private Party against MXM Collection.
Is
Saturday,
Rico going to be there?
We had no update on Rico on tonight's show. Nothing.
We'll
find out on Rampage, I guess. Saturday night, 3 hours. We have the Outrunners against Roosh and Beast Mortos. Kyle Fletcher against Atlantis Jr. And that's for Collision. That's for the 2 hour block. For Battle of the Belts, we have the Eliminator between Mariah May and Anna Jay. Next week on Dynamite is the ladder war between Mark Briscoe and Chris Jericho, and then Jack Perry and the Young Bucks against Daniel Garcia and Private Party, as well as the Swerve Shelton Benjamin announcement for October 30th. So I am sure we're going to get multiple graphics for Collision and Battle of the Belts over the next couple of days, and probably some announcements on Rampage. But I can't say that this lineup was enticing me to spend 3 hours on more programs.
Well, it's there for people who you know who are interested in the mid to undercard of this promotion, and or just people who just want to have more wrestling on their TV.
Okay, well, if that's what you're looking for, more tonnage. That's what they should call it. Saturday Night Tonnage.
That's not the worst name for
Tonnage,
a TV show, I guess.
Anyway, I'm imagining the Rampage theme song, but subbing that out for Tonnage, that rap they do. Jay White against Christian Cage is our main event of the night. Early on,
sorry, I gotta talk about this. Okay, so all of Jay White's return, like he cut that promo talking about. I got 2 targets.
Okay, this was bad. None of this was explained.
I'm going for first of all, I'm gonna write my first wrong, or the person who wronged me in Hangman Page, and then I'm gonna go for the second one. And they continue to drag that out as a mystery. Jay White doesn't mention it. The announcers act as if it's some sort of like secret, like because they don't know who his other target is. He beats Page on Saturday, and then all of a sudden we just get this match announced. And Excalibur did mention it in commentary, but like what? Like why didn't he just announce it earlier? And or if not, like
this was the reason Jay White was eliminated from the Owen tournament, was because of Christian Cage. It's not like this was some like mystery angle or something subtle. Like this was a big part of the tournament, and even the finish with Hangman laying there, like it was a total play on Christian and lying there on the floor afterward. But
why didn't we at least maybe let this linger for 1 week so that we could have at least had one Jay White promo specifically targeting Christian Cage, or like maybe have him maybe cut a promo like on WrestleDream if you didn't have enough time. I still don't know why you'd have to rush this match to have to happen this evening, but you're missing out on so much like storytelling material that you've been kind of setting setting up through as a mystery, for 2 weeks now before executing this match and basically cashing in on this match that doesn't, by this point, feel all that interesting or, I don't know, like I had no time to really anticipate it.
A lot of times I think we see in AEW that they do a great job of shooting the big angle, and then the follow-up leaves a lot to be desired, and some of it gets saved with a strong ending to it. Like you get the big match at the end, but so much of the money is in the middle. And we can talk about, for whatever you want to say, like the lead up to the Undisputed Kingdom last year, like that led to a very good pay-per-view number in December. And that was off the intrigue that you were going to get the payoff to this. They built this thing and built this thing, and how quick, and granted, you had the Adam Cole injury. All right. Then we saw with the Elite earlier this year and building them up as this big group, huge angle by AEW standards, taking out Tony Khan. And that thing was rendered just inconsequential within weeks with the follow-up to that. So I'm very hesitant on watching this BCC angle at the moment where, yeah, you've kicked it off with a big start to things. And tonight was like the follow-up to it. And it's just like, are you going to be able to capitalize off the big angle? Because it's one thing to shoot the angle, but the money is in the whole follow-up and then building to whatever like the matches are coming out of it.
Sure. Yeah. Like in this case, I just don't know why they didn't spend at least a little bit more time to delay this match so that we can at least get a little bit more storytelling in there before giving it to us, because they were keeping this entire target a secret, even though we all knew that it was going to be Christian. But they never really played with it.
I bet there were a lot of people who, when they heard I'm coming for Hangman and then the other one, I bet you there were a lot of people who didn't know.
Dude, I didn't know until you mentioned it to me. I had no idea.
Well, then you're speaking for a lot of people who probably had no idea that this mystery man, like that was, we're talking about like last summer that took place. Yeah, you see a million angles on these shows. Like you're not going to be segmenting all of them in your memory bank.
There is great backstory to this Jay White versus Christian Cage match that is months in the making. That's based in reality that they've just completely squandered. I don't know why Tony felt the need to put this match tonight without, telling us some of that story first. You had Excalibur mention this backstory as the match was already happening at the beginning of it. And at that point, it's just kind of pointless. So, yeah.
Well, Colton and Juice get ejected because they get caught with the chair, but then they drag Nick Wayne away. So Mother Wayne leaves with them too. So we're left with Jay White and Christian Cage. Nigel, during the break, referred to Tony as a dermf. A dermf.
Dermf. How do you spell that?
D-I-R-N-F.
D-I-R-N-F. Do you know what it means?
He explained it's a dude I'd rather not F.
Yeah. Okay.
White.
Is that like a is that a Gen Z thing?
I don't know, but there was actually a hilarious one earlier in the show, and I don't know what the line was. I can't remember, but Nigel just responded to Tony, and even he like broke and was like, oh, "Okay, that was too mean." It was like even he like caught himself on one of them. I enjoy Shivani and Nigel quite a lot, and I like having Nigel on these Wednesday shows. So Cage is in control. White pokes him in the eye and pulls his turtleneck over his head and starts delivering chops and a DDT. Cage then hits an inverted DDT onto the edge. And that's when this match gets interesting.
Oh, my God.
Cage sets up for a spear when Kip Sabian pops up onto the apron and temporarily distracts Christian. Hangman runs down. The whole crowd reacts to the run-in when you're seeing a big star. But they obviously had like screwed up their cue because Hangman then just bails to the side. The announcers have to play dumb that they didn't see him. The camera goes right onto Hangman, so they have to admit, oh, Hangman's here. And he's hiding there. Kip has just disappeared into the ether, into thin air.
He actually retreated next to the floor director or one of the production hands, and he's you could see on his face, I think he realized he fucked up the moment he sat down, and the cameras actually caught this.
So I'm watching this and I'm thinking, was this like was this a screw up? Did they get the timing wrong? And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to go another like 60 seconds and then we'll just get that. They did not go they went like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're just like, where are these two bodies that you know are lingering and waiting to come back? But they went through these near falls. They had a Blade Runner tease. There was a kill switch kick out. And then Cage sets up for the spear. And I thought I had hit my rewind button because Kip Sabian pops up onto the apron. Hangman gets onto the apron. The ref is distracted with Kip. So Hangman hits the buckshot, leading to Cage pinning Jay White in 16 minutes and 13 seconds. And then Hangman rolls to the floor. This is the exact same way Cage hid after costing Jay White the match in the Owen tournament. What a mess, that this was. I mean, credit to like these guys that just had to deal with these guys obviously like jumping the gun. How does this happen? How does like Hangman get sent to the ring?
I'm rewatching the clip right now, and it's hilarious watching Christian wave Sabian off. At the risk of like getting this video flag, I didn't
have time to rewatch it.
I want to rewatch it with you, John. I'm watching it at 0.5 so that like hopefully like it doesn't flag it.
Just
but okay,
risk it.
Here we see Jay White here. Christian Cage is going for the spear. And out of the corner of his eyes, he sees Kip Sabian come up. He's yelling, "No, now's not the time." He waves him down, and Kip Sabian is just like, "Oh shit, oh shit, what do I do?"
And you know what? So Kip was seen there, and that's probably when Hangman gets the cue to run down.
Of course, yes.
And then he's waving it off, and Hangman's like kid in the cookie jar. He's stuck here on television and just has to hide. I mean, what a mess. What a mess.
Look at Kip Sabian. Look at him here.
Jesus
next to the floor
Christ.
guy. He's like,
why did they
fuck.
cut to him too? Everyone was just on different
Well, I'm
pages
sure
here.
like even the floor director's confused. Like the director in the back is confused. Like poor Hangman looks so dumb coming out here and just like, oh, what a mess this was.
Listen, I'll say this. It was like, at least it happened where it seems like they had the flexibility with the overrun. And I think the fact that they didn't immediately just redo it, because that would have been even more comical. This was comically bad.
They did redo it though. What are you talking about?
They did, but they tried to do like, they did like 4 or 5 minutes before they...
That was probably because that's what the match that they had planned was supposed to go. They were supposed to do 5
in a lot of cases, they would have been like, these guys are out here. Let's just get to the finish. It was a mess. It was a total mess.
I don't think what they ended up doing saved the match at all. I think they just like went back to the script.
But here's the question then. Why was Cage going for the spear? Because that was the cue for Kip to get onto the apron. Was that what happened at the very end? Yes. That's
okay. So I mean, this was just like a first spear attempt in a match, not necessarily the last one.
Then that should have been communicated better, because Kip obviously is looking for the spear. That's
clearly
the spot.
Somebody should have communicated to Kip Sabian a little better whatever he was supposed to do.
Yeah,
this just kind of set these dominoes to fall, and boy did they fall. Look at Hangman Page's look here. This kind of says it all.
This was
what do you think was going through his head? Okay, as he's like, the camera's on me. Like I know we've all fucked up. Like what a mess this was.
He was thinking like Moxley, there's no room, there's no need for celebrating, no parties.
Yeah.
A rough one here. Yes. I mean, work was kind of secondary to this.
I didn't think the match was even that good, to be honest with you. Like, I was kind of disappointed by it.
Well, there you go. That was Dynamite. I think beyond even like some of the matches, like so much of this to me was focused on the follow-up of the BCC. Did this feel like a big follow-up? Did this feel like this is this angle that is going to be something significant for AEW that is the prime focus of its programming?
So it seems like they are specifically, it seems like the next generation is reacting to the BCC. Everybody else, like all the established guys like Swerve, they've all kind of like, they're just kind of ignoring it. Like everything's fine and they've got their own problems. So at this moment, I can't say it feels that big. It's not the company shaking event that I think like, something like the Invasion was supposed to be. But I did still think it was like significant follow-up. I think the beatdowns look really good. The intensity of the group still feels really strong. But maybe to your point earlier, John, like the fact that they're going after just the Dark Order and like Orange Cassidy is a pretty big target, I would say. Not the biggest though.
I mean, they've set the stage with Darby, with Orange Cassidy. I mean, like they have set that, but those are in the future. And I mean, granted, like Dark Order and Top Flight, it's not like they're working them at the next pay-per-view. They're sort of just running through these guys. it remains to be seen. I think follow-up has been a struggle for a lot of their big angles, so the jury is out on.
What would you like to see? Would you like to see like bigger names be attached to this BCC storyline? Would you like to see everybody comment on it? Or
I think you want a balance of like the big stars being involved. I think that's what kind of like there was a lot of star power that was lacking on this show, but they're at the same point where they're also trying to elevate a number of these guys, and I like the fact that they're isolating them. Like Darby, I feel like was an omission on this show that just felt like whether there was a real reason he couldn't be on this show, that to me was a big void for this program, because he is kind of the leader of this group that I think needs that presence.
I think at the moment, like this still feels like a show that is keeping all of its storylines separate rather than having like this sort of all encompassing storyline. In time, I think you might get that. They're already starting to like involving the Elite was already more than I was expecting, and that does help make it feel like a slightly bigger, storyline than it is. But at the moment, like they have a lot of other storylines that they're trying to build at the same time, and
basically three big heel groups that they're all trying to, like this Don Callis family is trying to enforce it as a real big deal now. The Elite needs to be in that kind of level as well. And then you have the overarching BCC. Like that's a lot to try and get off the ground.
I don't necessarily think like the BCC needs to be threatening, or they need to feel like they have a hand in everybody's storylines at the moment.
They're trying to kill the company.
Yeah, I know. That's what they say, but at the same time, how's an MJF supposed to react to that? How's an Adam Cole supposed to react to that while there's building their own thing, right? In the end, we're supposed to be building to matches for Full Gear, and the BCC can only have one match or two matches, right? So I thought the Cole MJF stuff, like they're having to patch up, a pretty the rough go of, I guess, inconsistent storytelling because of the heel and babyface turns. But to steer the ship, I thought they had a positive segment tonight.
There's some very choppy waters that they are trying to steer the ship up. The booking is kind of all over the map at the moment. Like it's not exactly a smooth show to watch from a booking standpoint.
Yeah. It's more interesting to watch to see what they're trying to fix than anything. Like in this last segment, okay, like this Kip Sabian thing, like somebody screwed up. How are they going to fix it?
These last 5 minutes, I was just trying to piece it all together, but it was something else.
This is the lasting image.
That was it. That was all of us. Yeah. Everyone was Hangman Page in that moment. All right, well there you go. Those were our thoughts on quite the edition of Dynamite.
Sino in the chat room says also that at the Rampage taping, O'Reilly challenged Okada for Battle of the Belts.
Wow, they are doing that on Battle of the Belts. Okay, that's
Well, Okada didn't say yes. Okay.
Oh, right. Maybe
he just said no, bitch.
He'll accept the challenge on Collision, and then the match will get delayed from Battle of the Belts.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, anyway. All right, so let's go to Super Chats and feedback over on the forum.
We got one Super Chat here from Matt Hahn. He sends $10. Thank you, Matt. He says, AEW's main event scene is so loaded right now. Who of these wrestlers do you see winning the world title over the next year? Darby Allin, Christian Cage, Ospreay, Hangman, Swerve, MJF, Okada, or Jay White?
Darby Allin.
I think Christian will have a run, like just to maybe set this gimmick off.
I don't think he should be touching the title at this point.
You don't think so?
You've just put the title on Moxley. Like, how does that one work?
He says over the next year.
Okay, well,
You don't think he'll cash in successfully?
Maybe there's a time to do it.
I just think to establish the gimmick that like Tony will want to, have a successful cash in.
Yeah, I don't think Christian needs it, and I don't think the company needs it right now for what it's trying to do. Like Moxley should have this title for a long time, and when he loses it, I think it should be to Darby. I think that is the ultimate like destination, and I wouldn't be just hot potatoing this thing multiple times before that.
Even the Darby is an interesting one though, because if he goes off to Everest, like how much is he going to be out for the year?
Well, according to Brody King, it could be indefinite. So,
yeah, seriously though,
it's literally. Actually, wait.
He's got to be gone to train, okay? Like around this time.
Is he going to train, or is he just going to do a cold?
Can you do Everest without training? He would, I guess. I'm betting he's going to train. Okay, so that'll take you out already. For
Imagine having to book your year out, and one of the hurdles is one of your performers going to climb Mount Everest, and how that could affect your booking.
One of many issues.
Imagine Luthez saying, "You know what? We need to get Dick Hutton up and running because I'm going to go do Everest."
Yeah, I don't know. So it can go one of two ways. It could be Tony like wanting to hotshot a Darby Allin title run because he knows Allen's going to be gone for like the better part of next year. So we might get that title change sooner than later. Or he might be playing the long game, hoping that he's safe and healthy coming off of Everest, that he could book to a title match for Darby next year.
Well, I mean, in the absence of a Darby, which is like a long-term in the sense of the next year, Moxley and Swerve, that's a huge program. I mean, that's not a bad
Moxley Ospreay, big one.
Listen, like we're just listing here like a handful of names, and there's other ones that you can throw to it. Like I do not worry about like a shortage of. The key is getting several of these people kind of elevated. Like that seems to be the major focus. Is can you see less so than even your Ospreys, your Swerves, MJFs, Okadas, they're at that level. Can you get a Darby up to that level? Can you get a Daniel Garcia up to that level? Can you get even a Jack Perry up to that level? Because I would put him in that list of people that they have high hopes for.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to be a big focus of 2025 is that core group and elevating.
They need more world titles, basically.
Well, I mean, you joke, but
is that the worst idea though? Like, okay, I know we joke about there being too many belts, but is it the worst idea to have two A-level championships? And I know most people are going to say, yes, it's an awful idea, but I think it's worked out for the WWE pretty well. Okay, like because of the brand split. You can perceive Gunther as the best of a certain division. You can perceive Cody as the best of a certain division. So is AEW at a point where they need something similar?
If it wasn't for the fact that they have all these other, like they kind of have these divisions. It's like Okada isn't going for the world title. Okada has his title.
But there's a perception that it's a secondary or even like a third, from the top.
Well, why is that? If they can't establish those titles as meaningful of that level, like what's a new world title going to mean?
Continent is not as big as the world.
Okay, but if they come out tomorrow with another AEW world title, are people going to perceive that as an equal belt?
It would take time.
It's just going to be another international title.
True. Yeah, it would take time.
All right. Do you want to start things off with feedback?
Sure, if I can load it back up, John.
Okay, I got it. Brian from New Jersey. Some good follow-up to the events of WrestleDream. I appreciated the baby faces that got beat up earlier by Moxley's crew that didn't just lick their wounds, but came back and cut promos on them. I also like the roles of the Elite within this story and Private Party staying in the thick of things. Today wasn't just Omega's birthday, but also my dad's. But at least he didn't have tripe poured onto his cake. Yeah, thankfully, Brian. I didn't think this was the strongest in-ring Dynamite, but I really enjoyed Shelton and Lio. Shelton looked like $1 million, and Lio sold like $1 billion. His question with Powerhouse Hobbs saying he's cleared to return. What do you see happening with him? Last time he was on the show, he was with Callis, but I wouldn't mind seeing him hook up with MVP regardless of Bobby Lashley showing up.
I see Hobbs returning as a babyface to oppose the Callis family, and I don't know if that would mean that he would join.
What if he comes back and the crowd takes to him as a babyface, but he's in the Don Callis family? And then he teams with Kyle Fletcher because it turns out that they were roommates over the past year. And then Kyle takes him out with a screwdriver after they fail to win the tag titles.
Okay. So just redo the whole Ospreay story?
Well, anyway. I think he would work well as a babyface.
You need to tell the story of him breaking up with the Callis family first. And are there other people that are in a similar... Like maybe he'll join Ospreay as like the disgruntled former Callis family members. That could be something, but
that'll be a new group, the disgruntled family members.
Sure, yeah, family matters. All right, let's go to Mark, who says, good episode that set up and followed up on a ton of story points coming out of WrestleDream. Perhaps one of the better post pay-per-view shows in a while. I'm hoping this sort of philosophical civil war between the two sides of AEW can be what the EVP angle tried and failed to spark. I'm not really into MJF and Cole, but at least they're hopefully going to finally wrap that up so both can move on. That said, while the stuff around their matches varied, the work between the two in-ring was always very good. One noticeable thing I feel like we haven't seen in a while, promoting of on-sale dates and shows, as well as a slew of announcements for the next 2 weeks. I said it after WrestleDream, and I'll say it now. It feels like a refocus similar to the post-Crash Out Dynamite at the end of 2019.
Next up is Matthew. I don't recall who the report came from, but I remember hearing that Tony runs the bigger arenas because he prefers the amenities they provide for fans, plus the ease of working with their staff. I mean, the fact is, they run lots of variations of buildings depending on markets they're in. If that was my number one reason of booking an arena, I don't know if that would be my prime concern.
Like, are we talking about like better popcorn, more expensive selection of beer, better bathrooms?
Listen, I don't doubt you book like the major sports arena in town. I'm sure there's all these positives that come with it, but ultimately, I mean, how much are you in line with what the public demand is for your tickets, and that you are ultimately producing a television show, and how much do you value like the atmosphere of that show? Because you could take a show like tonight or many of these shows and you put them in an arena half the size, it's going to sound way better. Your stars are going to feel like stars. And I mean, it's either you value that or you don't think it's a big issue. But I do think it does make a big difference.
I do too.
He goes on, I was fairly pleased with this episode of Dynamite. The Moxley story continues to intrigue me. I'm not sure where they're going. I was semi-expecting a Lashley debut here, but it makes sense to do it on the Halloween special. And I also like that they are announcing the match 2 weeks out.
Excuse me. I was just coughing.
Oh, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse to talk about all the issues with AEW. I'll save the long-winded version and just say that until they start making more efforts, they will continue to suffer in live attendance. People need to know who's going to be on the show and why they should get themselves or their families out on a Wednesday night to go see AEW.
I think at the very least, like, they could be promoting these are the names that we'll have, you know, like WWE often does, like either promoting a Cody appearance or something, even if it's just a dark match that people will be getting afterwards, right? I certainly don't think that hurts.
Yeah. I listen, tonight you could see certain things like the graphics for the upcoming events. I mean, the fact they are promoting a match 2 weeks in advance, like that's all stuff. Like you can tell like they're not blind to these facts, and you're at least seeing things that are being executed to hopefully, you know, it's not going to turn overnight. Like there's a certain coldness to these shows that it is going to take time to kind of get that ball rolling, but nonetheless, thank you for the feedback, and thank you for all of you tuning in. We're back Thursday, postwrestlingcafe.com. We are chatting Saturday night's main event, number 12, featuring Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, the Mega Powers, coming together in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So that will be discussed in length.
God, and you also get to see Sika eating a chicken, a raw chicken. If you were turned off by this intestines on this cake, what did you think of Sika eating a raw chicken, John?
What kind of questions would Vince McMahon have been getting at press conferences after these events in terms of the representation of different ethnicities?
Well, thank goodness there weren't press conferences back then.
Could you imagine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Vince McMahon after all of it. Vince McMahon doing press conferences at any era after these pay-per-views. All right. That's going to wrap things up. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Tune in to Rewind-A-WAY, and then we're back Friday night with Rewind to SmackDown, and that concludes our look at Dynamite.